share a little bit about my story and then maybe just have a conversation. So my background is my family came here as refugees from Uganda in the 1970s. The dictator Idi Amin had literally expelled all of the Indians in 90 days to leave the country. And so my family showed up to Chicago, Illinois. My mother was 8 months pregnant with my sister, and they were just fortunate. They were 2 of 1,000 refugees who got status to come here. And I grew up in a Midwest town, being one of the few Indian families that lived there, and faced a lot of bullying and taunting and teasing because of the color of my skin. Because back then, they just didn't see a lot of people who looked like me. And it was from a very young age that I was really passionate about social service, about racial justice, about equality, and about really finding my voice. I fell in love with politics in 1996 when I got a chance to work on President Clinton's campaign. Never stopped after that. Went to Yale Law School after I applied 3 times. I got rejection after rejection after rejection. Finally, I just got on a train, went to New Haven, snuck into the dean's office, knocked on his door. He didn't call security, and kind of convinced him to let me in the next year. Because I was just, for some reason, obsessed with going to Yale Law School, probably because I was always obsessed with Hillary Clinton while she was there. And I graduated Yale Law School, $300,000 in student loan debt, came to New York because that's where you come when you want to make your dreams come true. I thought I'd work for 2 years, pay off my loans, and then I'd be off to running for office. Well, 2 years turned into 10. I found myself working at a financial services firm, coming home in the fetal position every day. I hated it. And I was so depressed because if you asked me when I was 13 years old what I wanted to do, I wanted to serve. And instead, I was working with a bunch of bankers. And I had to at that point, or I thought I had to, because I was still helping my parents pay for their mortgage, and my student loan debt just frightened me. I just didn't think I had any other choices. And I remember watching Hillary Clinton give her concession speech, where she had this line where she said, just because I failed doesn't mean you shouldn't try too. And I literally thought she was speaking to me. So I walked into my boss's office and I quit. And I decided at age 33 to run for United States Congress against an 18-year incumbent in a Democratic primary in New York City against another woman, because I thought that was just a great idea. I had no idea what I was doing. My life was run by 20-year-olds. I'd never raised money before. My name was Reshma Saujani. I had a banging policy book, an awesome website, but like a 1% chance of winning, and I had no idea. I remember, my first television interview was on Chris Matthews. It couldn't be New York 1. Had to be Chris Matthews, like the meanest person in the world. But it was the 10 best months of my life because everything was like jumping off a cliff, and I loved it. On election day, the little ticker didn't go past 19%, and I remember sitting there with my father, and I just wanted to cry so bad. But I had like these hundreds of field organizers just watching me and watching what I would do, and so I cried the next day. We live in a society that's so ashamed of failure. We as women are so ashamed of failure. Like, we think we have to do the job before we apply for the job. If it was a guy in my position, I got 19%. I was like, oh my God, I got 19%. I was broke, I was humiliated, I had pissed off everybody in the Democratic establishment. And, often, and nobody was calling me. Even though I had raised more money than any challenger that year, I was the youngest woman to run. We had built this huge, we're on the front page of the New York Times twice, the Washington Post twice. No one called to say, you did a really great job, you have a future, here's what you should do next. And I didn't know what to do next. Fortunately for me, Bill de Blasio, who's now the mayor, called me up and said, I think you got something special. Will you come work for me? At that time, he was like a not well-known public advocate. No one even knew what the public advocate was, and he wanted to help help him invent his office. At that time, I also started writing my book, Women Who Don't Wait in Line, and I started writing it more for therapy. Right? I had this experience as a young woman running for office, and I really faced and saw things that were keeping us as women behind, and really felt like this new model of leadership, whatever it is, it's got to be different. And so when I worked for Bill, he kind of asked me to just look around New York City and see what's happening. One of the things that I saw when I was running in 2010 was this technology divide, right? I'd be in the Upper East Side at Dalton or Brearley, and I'd see 100 boys, right, in a robotics lab doing their thing. And then I'd be in Queens, and there'd be one girl in the basement of a church. I am a feminist with a capital F. And when I look at what's happening in the industry, right, we know where the jobs are going to be. They're in computer science, they're in technology. But for some reason, young girls are not going into those fields. And when you look at like math and science aptitude, we're kicking boys' asses on tests, right? We're smarter than them. But for some reason, right, we're not choosing those careers. Part of that, I decided I wanted to be a lawyer, and you won't even know what I'm talking about. Maybe you will, but when I saw Kelly McGillis on The Accused, I thought she was amazing, right? But when you think about it, in the 1970s, 10% of doctors and lawyers were women. 10%. Today, all of you have or know of a female doctor or lawyer. That number's like 45%. Why? LA Law, Grey's Anatomy, Kelly McGillis. We are constantly inundated with these fabulous women that are doctors and lawyers that look like us, and we're like, we can do that. For girls in technology, what is it? The Barbie doll that says, I hate math, let's go shopping instead. I can walk into Forever 21 and buy a t-shirt that says allergic to algebra. You know, don't even get me started about, you know, HBO's new show, Silicon Valley. We get excited when we see Sandra Bullock, you know, playing an astronaut. Like, there are no positive images for young girls saying that you can do this, and our girls are listening. Because the thing is, and you guys know this in working in space, teenage girls actually lead trends. It's these 16-year-old girls that decide what is cool and what they push their friends into. And all of a sudden, after social network, for boys, technology is cool. Everybody wants to be Mark Zuckerberg or Jack Dorsey. But girls don't feel the same way. And so I wanted to do something about it. So I put 20 girls in a classroom in a technology company in 2012 to help them learn how to computer program. And we exposed them to female mentors. We went on field trips to Teen Vogue, NYPD, Facebook. And these were girls you work with, right? 70% of them, free and reduced lunch, you know, the black and brown girls that everybody had counted out. Not only did they learn how to computer program, they were amazing at it. And they wanted to build products that were about changing the world. So they built algorithms to help detect false positives when we do breast cancer testing. They built apps to fight bullying. They built apps to fight human trafficking and world hunger. And it became very clear to me why this is so important. It's not gender parity for the sake of gender parity, but whatever problem everybody in this room wants to solve, you're going to need technology to help you solve it. And if you don't feel comfortable articulating that, talking to an engineer, coding your own website, building your own app, we're not going to be able to solve any of these problems. So we went from 20 girls in 2012 to almost, we're going to teach 3,000 girls this year. And what we do is basically we build classrooms in technology companies. So this year we're going to have 19 programs in New York, California, Boston, Seattle, and Miami. And they're going to be embedded at Facebook, Twitter, Square, Intel, eBay. Every single major technology company in America is going to have 20 young girls running around learning how to computer program. And then we have Girls Who Code clubs, which we do 2 hours of coding basically a week in schools. So for me, I don't care if you want to be Beyonce or Hillary Clinton. Like, you have to learn how to computer program. You have to learn about computer science. You have to learn how to problem solve. And that's really what we're teaching these young women. And what's powerful, I think, about what we've done is, you know, in the 1980s, 37% of computer scientists were women. And today that number is 12%. When we first invented the keyboard, you know, we actually pushed women towards it. A journalist said to me, you know, it's interesting, if you look at industries, once they become more prestigious and you make more money, you push women out. You see this in medicine, you see this in law, you see this in technology. You find any industry, and when women invade it, it becomes all of a sudden, we don't pay them enough. And so what we're trying to do at Girls Who Code is like crash that glass ceiling before it comes. Because I don't want to live in a world that's run by men. And I don't want to see the next generation of wealth, yet again, be run by men. 85% of women make consumer purchases. We own the internet. We Facebook more, we tweet more. We basically run everything technical, but we're not on the other end. We're not building the next Facebook. We're not building the next Pinterest. We're not building the next Twitter. Not because we can't, but because we're not moving into those spaces. Because we're, in some ways, pop culture in our country is pushing us away from it. And so we have an opportunity really here in a powerful way to reverse a trend. before I be quiet, I want to leave you with a couple of just thoughts and tips as women. One, I really don't think that the problems with women's leadership anymore have to do with sexism in men. Like, let's get real, we're powerful. We're the majority in colleges, we're the majority in the workforce, we're the majority of breadwinners, we're the majority in the ballot box. 11 million of us have the power to make hiring decisions. We have an opportunity to change that. But oftentimes we're not nice to each other. We don't really employ a sisterhood. I think your generation does in a way that my generation and the generation before me did not. And we have an opportunity to really build a girls' club and to hook a sister up. At Girls Who Code, and in my campaign, and I shouldn't say this because it's probably illegal, but if I had 2 resumes and one was a man and one was a woman, and they were the same, I hired the woman every single time. You know, I dedicate probably 20% of my time, and I don't have a lot of time, to mentoring young women, because it's really important that we give one another opportunities and we celebrate each other and we lift each other up. And I know you're doing this here, and so I want to congratulate you for that, and that's why I'm here this morning, because I think we have to celebrate organizations that really do that. Secondly, don't be afraid to fail. I lost 2 campaigns. I applied to Yale Law School 3 times. I fail a million times a day. I celebrate it. I invite it. I actually, you know, you should try to fail at least once a month. And I know it sounds funny, but you know, men are so comfortable with rejection, right? How many times have you walked down the street and got whistled at somebody and told them to piss off, right? All the time. What do? They do it again and again and again. They're so comfortable with rejection. We are not comfortable with rejection. And we need to be. Because if we don't, we're never going to make those double steps in our career. We're always going to think we have to be over-prepared, or we're not qualified, or we can't do that, and then we don't try. And then we don't get elevated. And it's totally systematic. We're taught to do this from a very young age. We have to really turn that around. The second thing is really, and I feel like I've really learned this in my career, like, do that cost-benefit analysis of your life. You're also young. You're going to get your first job soon. It's okay if after a month you hate it and you quit. You know, I've had 8 different jobs in my career. Don't stick into things when you're not passionate about them. I always do like the Sunday night test. If I am on Sunday night dreading to go to work on Monday, that is not the right job for me. I hate holidays. Like, I love Mondays because I love what I do. I'm like incredibly, incredibly passionate about the plight of women and girls. And so finding that in your career is really, really, really important. And then the third thing is be authentic. You know, when I was running for office in 2010, everybody said to me, put your hair in a ponytail, wear glasses, and put on a J. Crew skirt every day. Don't draw attention to what you look like, or your gender, or your age. I'm an Indian woman, we age well, so I always look younger than I am. So follow the rules, you know, and a few weeks before the end of my campaign, I was in a good mood, it was sunny out, it was like a day like this, and I threw on a really cute red dress that was conservative, and a nice pair of Kate Spade shoes. And a New York Times reporter was following me around for the day. And at the end of the day, she looked at my shoes and she said, what size are you? And she ended up writing an 1,800-word story about my shoes. Kate Spade still sends me free shoes, which is the one that all of that. But the lesson of that was not that I shouldn't have worn the red dress, but I should have worn the red dress every single day. You can't hide from who you are, right? Because people are going to go there anyway. So authentically be you in how you dress and how you speak. You know, don't worry about, am I being too aggressive? Am I not being aggressive enough? Does someone like me? Does someone not like me? Just be you. And I think this idea of authenticity of leadership is really going to change the face of leadership, because we don't like strong women in this country. We just don't. Look at Hillary Clinton. Look at Sheryl Sandberg. Anytime there is a strong woman, we pull them down. And so we have to change that mode of leadership. Instead of hiding it, we have to own it. Like, I look in the mirror every day and say, yeah, I'm ambitious. That's awesome. Like, it's good to be ambitious. Celebrate that. You know, I was really fortunate when I lost my election. One of the first phone calls I got was from Hillary Clinton. Just to call and be like, are you all right? Don't give up. She didn't need to do that. She's an incredibly busy woman. But she understands this idea of like sisterhood and really celebrate, and really we are responsible for each of us and each of our leadership. And we're going to crash through that glass ceiling when we start operating as a sisterhood and start elevating one another's leadership.